Oh man, am I ready to talk about this episode? Okay. Woo!
Yes. It was amazing.
So episode 2, Infected. Man, where to even begin with this one?
I know.
I
should start at the beginning.
I thought the first episode was amazing. This episode's better. And now, will this episode be better for non-gamers? I don't know. Maybe. I can say that currently right now it has over 1,000 ratings on IMDb and still holds a 10.0. This is probably a lot of gamers spamming it right now. Nothing's going to hold a 10.0. I think that episode of Breaking Bad that Ryan Johnson did, I think has a 10. I think it's like the only thing I've ever seen that has a 10. But man, this episode's incredible.
It really
and
is.
we're not even into the thick of it yet, right?
We're just
Like
in the
there's some
beginning.
There's some wild shit gonna happen. So
yeah,
now,
absolutely.
like in the last episode, we're gonna talk spoilers for the show and potentially for the game, but I'll mostly warn you if we discuss anything super major in the upcoming games. I don't think I'd mention anything from Game 2. It's mostly just going to be Game 1 stuff and not major spoilers for the game. But I will probably sporadically mention stuff. Just so you guys are warned. And as accurate as this show has been thus far, we're 100% going to... We know exactly what's going to happen.
Yes.
Right? For the most part. Right? The big story beats are going to remain the same. Let's get into the damn episode. Because this episode is just...
It's too good. It's really
incredible.
too good.
Now, this was the most anticipated show. And not only that, but like the adaptation that means the most to me to ever get right. And this is the best adaptation I've ever seen.
Yeah. Of
any source material. The Lord of the Rings would be like close, but even they changed a lot. Now, I agree with almost all the changes done in the Lord of the Rings films. It just speeds things up, makes things this and that. But like, man, what's different about this, right, with a book, is that with a book, you're adapting someone's imagination, right? As to where with a video game, you already have the visual representations of a lot of things. And so you don't have as much artistic liberty there to change things. They can, and they did. But in this episode was directed by Neil Druckmann, who directed both games. This is the one I would have expected to either be the most different or the most the same. Like, Neil's either going to be like, I already did this, I don't want to do it again, so I'm gonna make it the most different because, you know, I'm the one that's going to be able to be like, I mean, I already did that. But he didn't. No. I mean, this is like playing the game. I mean, this stuff... God, it's hard to keep my thoughts straight. I'm so excited for this friggin' episode. But yeah, so let's start at the beginning, as you said, with the mycologist.
Yeah, the mycologist.
Yeah.
This was so cool that they added, and we were talking after the episode, kind of debating if they would be doing this kind of opening for each episode, sort of flashbacks.
Flashbacks before
the outbreak, and I really like that idea. I kind of hope that they do stick with it because I think it makes everything have so much more context.
Sure.
And for people who are fans of the game, it gives us more background and lore, which is what we want. But I thought it was just so scary, like the way that the scientist, the way that she reacts when she sees the infection and is just like, there's no medicine, there's no vaccine, like you just have to bomb the city.
Her
like
response.
Harrowing.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was definitely a doozy, but it just makes it all the more real because, we were talking about fungi and mushrooms before watching the episode, and, a lot of the stuff in the game is based on real life facts, and the idea that humanity couldn't withstand a fungal outbreak and that we would be so like unprepared to even address what that looks like. I think that this opening just really shows how devastating it could be, you know.
I also really like the contrast between the scientists talking to the military, and the military is the one pushing for the scientific cure,
Right.
and it's the scientist that's pushing for the bombs.
Right.
This is a complete opposite flip
Oh my
of
gosh,
what we
yeah.
normally get in movies. It's always the scientist that's like, give me another hour, give me some time, I can figure out how to save us all. And the military is like, just bomb them, just burn it all to the ground. And the scientists are like revolting, like, no, you can't. We're still working on it. Give us time. Not this time. And
No.
that I don't think I've ever seen that before, ever, in any zombie movie, in pretty much anything. I don't think I've ever seen where an infection, the scientist's reaction to the infection is burn it to the ground, bomb the city.
Right.
Just let me go home and be with my family and kill everyone in the city. She calls for the absolute destruction of the city.
Right. She's like,
This
literally
is
bomb everyone
wild.
here.
This is the response she has to seeing this stuff, because she knows it's apocalyptic.
Right. Like this is the only way to contain it.
Now, a big thing to talk about here, which is really, really cool. Huge, a massive shout out to whoever made this connection. I'm sure it was a few people or multiple people, but whoever made this connection and put it online. So there was this rumor and theory going around that the fungal infection was spread by wheat or grain. And this was shown to us through a lot of focus, mostly by the Miller family, on the avoidance of wheat or grain. As in the beginning of the episode, Joe declines pancakes. Sarah doesn't want the cookies because there's raisins in them. Joe forgets the cake, and Joel. I don't know why my mouth
You're
wouldn't
just
like.
so excited.
Yeah, I
You're
know.
like, I'm gonna
I couldn't
shorten
get
it.
the L out for some reason. Joel, said he was on the Atkins diet, which of course excludes grains. So it's wild that we get pretty much definitive confirmation here that this was spread through bread.
Right. And I mean,
the spread is bread.
of course, like, you kind of wonder, well, like, were they eating wheat, before that day? And why is it all of a sudden, right then and there, that the day that they decide not to eat anything is when everyone's infected? But
So-
it's not I don't know. I honestly don't feel like I need an answer to that, because it doesn't truly matter unless they want to really go heavily into, like, in these flashbacks, how the outbreak, like, how it spread. And if there's, an explanation in there, I'm happy with it. But if there isn't, like, that's okay with me.
So we listen to the Last of Us podcast. They have an official HBO podcast that is hosted by Troy Baker, and his guests are Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin, which
So
is really cool.
cool.
45 minutes
cool.
long. They're going to drop an episode every week right after the show. It's probably dropped right now for episode 2. In that, Mazin had said, or Mazin, had said that they were leaving quote-unquote breadcrumbs,
Yes.
which I think was a very winky kind of answer to straight up saying that it's the bread. That they're going to leave breadcrumbs for, this and that. So, okay. As far as how it's spread, I think, much like Mazin's answer, we'll just say Mazin. I don't fucking know what it is, but I'm just going to go with that. Much like Mazin's answer. Mazin's probably right. Mazin sounds better, right?
Mazin does
Mazin
sound
sounds better. Okay, let's go with Mazin. Much like Mazin's response, I think that what we get in the first episode with the bread, with the, with the cake, with the cookies, the Atkins diet, I think that this is just breadcrumbs. right? I think this is just like kind of hinting to the audience that it's that. And for smarter people than us, they picked up on that and caught it. I don't think it's all the bread or that
Sure.
it, whatever. I think that there was a shipment of some kind of bread, some kind of dough, some kind of something.
That was contaminated.
And it was contaminated.
Yeah.
This reminds me of Batman from 1989, the Tim Burton movie, where the Joker poisons a specific line of products, right?
Sure.
And they don't know what products they are, and it's not until Bruce Wayne figures it out, and then he releases the list of infected products that no one's allowed to use hygiene products. I think it's like that. I think it's just a specific set. Like whatever contaminated grain came over from Indonesia is the one that people. But it was probably it's probably a main factory and it sent it out all over, right? And they got their stock in, and they probably served some of it on planes, and they whatever,
yeah.
and that's why planes are coming down now. Why there's so many planes coming down at the same time? This is like movie logic to me.
Of
I don't
course.
really care.
Yeah.
Would everyone turn that fast that day? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't think someone got bit and then got on the plane.
Right.
Right? Like maybe, but I don't really care. So as far as the bread thing, dead on.
Really
Whoever
cool.
got that, super cool. They very much mentioned that the woman that was brought in and she examines. She works at some wheat factory or something. 100% that's what it is. I mean, they wouldn't do that unless, of course, it was the bread. So
Right.
really great catch. Another thing I want to mention, there was a few things we did not mention last time, and I was kicking myself after. The big one, the massive one that I cannot believe we didn't bring up because it's so fucking cool.
It's so cool.
Is the music.
Yes.
Right? We get the original composer of the game coming to do the show. Did he, bring us, uber new material? No.
No.
Right? They're
but
basically, I don't even know if they needed to bring him. They could have just used what he already had.
Sure.
Because that's what it seems like. I don't care. It works so well with the show.
Oh my gosh.
But it also is the best kind of connection to the game because there's a lot of things that connect you to the game. But I don't know if there's anything that can connect you to the game faster
Than the music. Yeah.
Like if I hear one freaking note.
One little.
I mean, how many times have we been watching movies where
Sure, you
something
hear
plays like a
something.
guitar
Yeah.
or something that just sounds like just for 1 second. It's like, oh, that kind of sounds like The Last of Us.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It just instantly puts you in that headspace that you're in when you're playing the game.
It's almost like a mycelial connection
Oh man.
that sends this wave. We'll get to that.
Yeah, the music is fantastic, and it's just it's very seamless with the show, and I mean, yeah, we forgot to mention it, which sucks, but we love it, of course.
I don't know if we mentioned the opening credits last time, but just
I don't know.
the mushrooms, the fungus growing, and then it grows into the buildings, and it grows into Joel and
neat.
Ellie.
I know.
It's the best. I mean, yes, it's they were done. Supposedly, I'd heard it was done by the same people who did the Game of Thrones intro. Makes sense. It looks very similar. But the music, the I'm not being hyperbolic here. I genuinely think the show thus far is perfect.
Oh yeah, I do too.
I do not have a single thing that I would change.
No, and I don't know if that's just the fans in us, because we already love it so much, or if we are. I think we could be critical of it if we needed to be, but I agree with you. I think it's perfect right now, and with the way everything is going, I can't see that changing. Of course, something could happen that I hate and that we hate, but
oh, absolutely.
At least right now, it's the best. It's just so perfect.
If they try to dramatically change the storyline from part 2, I will be furious.
Yes, that would be the big thing, but we'll see. We'll see, and
I get that it's a tough thing because you are going to piss off so many people who hate the second game, but it's don't lose the fans you already have, right? You already have this is learn from Star Wars. The Last Jedi fans, the ones that remained, appease them.
Well,
right?
sure.
Don't try to get the
Yeah.
other ones back and lose the other ones, because the other ones don't even care. Right? So, like, to me, you gotta just do 2. You gotta just do it. I think it's a masterpiece. So many people do. So many people think it's awful. But you just gotta go in. So, yes, we can be critical. If they change the Abby stuff, if they, like, cut her out completely or any of that stuff, oh, I'd be furious. I don't even know if I'd want to watch a second season. I mean, I probably would, but I would be, like, pissed the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? So we can absolutely be critical, for sure. And we could be this season. They could change things in this season that would piss us off. But thus far, 2 episodes in, I thought the first episode was perfect. And I thought this episode was better. But is that the gamer, or is that it? But as I said, 10.0, I don't know. It's looking like this is even more well received than the first, and the first was like the highest rated episode ever.
It is a phenomenal episode.
Premiere.
I think that, like, my favorite, well, I don't know, there's so much in the episode that I really love, but the thing that was very rewarding in this episode was Tess.
Oh my God.
Anna Torv, like, she did such an amazing job. You know, she's only in the show for 2 episodes, but what she's able to do, and obviously, you know, she has more material to work with, of course, but we just get to see so much more of Tess as a character. It adds so much depth to her. I think her portrayal is spot on, and I really love the relationship, even though it's very brief, that her and Ellie kind of have this, you know, back and forth going on as they're walking, and, you know, Ellie's seeming to connect to her while Joel's kind of off in the background, still hesitant to form any connection because he's so fucking traumatized and hurt. So I just really like seeing Tess and Ellie together. And I think that what they changed, you know, her death is a little different, only in that instead of Fedra agents coming in, she's instead protecting them from a horde. But it makes total sense, and it makes it, like, as you said, a much more impactful death, you know, for the viewer, because it's just, like, it's much more visceral, you know, and to have it be against the infected, which is what humanity, you know, humanity is fighting the cordyceps infection above all else, right? Like, that's what we're up against, even though, you know, obviously in the game and in the series, I'm sure humans pose a major threat to other humans, but it is the fungus that is really killing everyone.
Fungus among us.
The fungus among us. And in particular, I mentioned this to you too, but I really like, so when she's telling Joel to leave, and, you know, you kind of think that they're going to kiss for a moment, but then he just turns around and, like, runs out the door with Ellie. She doesn't get the kiss with Joel, but then one of the infected approaches her, and she has that moment where, like, its tendrils are coming into her mouth, and it's just like the kiss of death, of course.
That's
but
her
it's
last
so
kiss.
sad. Especially, I really want the show to go into, like, the idea that people could still be inside of the, like, you know, the infected are still human in some way, and I think that just that moment, it was so tragic, because it's like, I don't know, something about the look from the infected, the way that it was looking at her, maybe I was putting too much, like, meaning into it, but it just felt very sad, and kind of like, I don't want to do this, but this is how we're going to connect, you know?
I think for sure we will get what you're saying, because in the game, the only real exploration of they're still in there that we get is from, like, the shamblers, and even the runners that are still, like, whining and moaning because they're in agony, they're in pain, they're still mentally in there, but they've lost control of their bodies, and that's terrifying and horrible, of course. But we don't really explore that much. That being said, we do get this conversation between Joel and Ellie while Tess is off trying to open the door, where she says, you know, do you ever feel bad, like, you know, killing these things, thinking that they used to once be human? And he says, sometimes, which is actually a surprising answer from Joel. I wasn't expecting that answer. I was expecting no. Like, he was so disconnected from it. It's like, no, there's fucking monsters. Like, I kill him. But, like, no, to him, being infected, like, is something he fears.
Of course.
And this is something that is new. This is something... Now, Troy Baker had talked about how if Pedro Pascal could teach him something new about Joel's character, that's when he would, like, that he would know, like, he was him, right? And it was like, yes, he said he did, but he wouldn't elaborate on what that is. And my guess at this point, could be something later on that maybe I'll change my guess, but something this episode did that I've never seen in Joel before is Joel is actually terrified of getting sick.
Yeah.
I'd never seen that side of Joel before in the games. He never seems to have any worries that he's infected. He doesn't ever check himself for wounds. He doesn't ever get into a fight with, like, this or that and then just be like... Because in the game, he gets injured.
Yes,
right?
All
He
the
gets
time.
in and you have to heal yourself in this. In the show, you can't. Right? He has to not get injured in that way, not by, like, an infected. So, Tess wants to kiss him. He doesn't want to get infected. Ellie, he goes to, like, help her up, but then he, like, kind of, like, retracts himself because he's like, wait, she's infected. I don't want to get anything from her. Maybe the tendrils will come out of her arm and cry. I've never really seen fear in Joel outside of course, later when he thinks he's going to lose someone, right? Like, but from the infection, I've never seen that side of him. So to see him actually terrified of it and actually thinking about the humans still inside and how it, like, hurts him is a different side of Joel than I've ever even considered. And so I have to wonder if that's the thing that he taught Troy about Joel.
Yeah, I wonder too, because it would make sense that it could be it. And I think that Joel's fear of infection is a very genius thing to add to his character. And it also makes, even Ellie and Joel's relationship all that more poetic, because she has the cordyceps inside her, and he already doesn't want to have a connection with her, and especially obviously doesn't want to get infected. So him kind of having to come to terms with both of those things is an interesting mesh of themes. We talked about the hand thing when he pulls away. I sort of also saw that as him as the emotional connection, but I think that it was mostly a fear of, like, oh, is she sick?
Could be 50-50.
But I think there's some of the emotional aspect as well. And the sets in this episode
just what I was going to talk about.
Insane. They gave me goosebumps, and they're so beautiful, and, like, that's one of the things with the game that I love, because there's tons of post-apocalyptic games where you see, like, rusted cars and, like, abandoned buildings and stuff, but for some reason The Last of Us does such a beautiful job of, like, nature reclaiming the human cities and human houses and such, and I think the show is doing a remarkable job at recreating a lot of those
There's
scenes.
Two things to mention on that is that, number one, this is obviously a passion project by Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann. So you have that really hyper specific attention to detail, and bringing Druckmann in as, a co-creator and director, writer, and everything was brilliant, because he really, really put his stamp on this, obviously knowing the world better or as good as anybody. And I'm assuming they probably not only use the game, but we have the art of The Last of Us, part 1 and 2, those books.
The concept.
And I'm going to tell you, like, the second thing before I get into that is the budget. I mean, I don't know what the budget on this show is, but it's got to be high, because, man.
Oh my gosh.
They're like, okay, like in film, what costs the most? Now, why cheap movies are always set in one location is because it's expensive to move locations, right? Not only is it expensive, especially if, like, it's a set that has, like, things that you have to actually create, not just like a living room, like in anybody's house, but like a world overtaken by fungus. So you have this, like, you have all of these sets throughout this episode. They must move to 15 different locations throughout, whether it's this, the stairwell or the hallway or the, museum or whatever. This is crazy expensive, and it looks it feels it, and also the most importantly, it's almost as if somehow they just, like, it's almost like the video game adapted a real world.
Yeah.
And then they just went to that place.
I know.
Because this is so hyper game accurate.
It really
it's kind of mind blowing. They're recreating sections of maps that I would never expect to see in a million years. We just replayed through The Last of Us again for, the third time. There was, and this is the PS5 remake, so the graphics are incredible. There's this little section of a map where you're going up different levels, fighting people. And, like, Ellie's in tow. And you're with Joel, and you're just kind of, like, making your way up. And you make your way, like, down this place, and you go outside. And there's, like, tarps around the outside of it, and there's chairs, like, dining, like, it's somewhere where people ate. Maybe it was, like, a little restaurant inside this hotel or whatever the hell. Just you walk through this. You don't even have to go in this room, but you walk through this for maybe 10 seconds. You might kill one guy in there. He might walk through and you stab him in the back. But you're in there for like 5 seconds. This isn't even a big scene. This is nothing. This is just a walk-through area. Right. This is recreated identically. Yeah. Like, we just played it, so I have it very, very, like, burned into my mind at the moment. And when I saw them walk out into that little, like, outside room where he pulls back the tarp and they look over the city and they're like, look, it's Agrabah. that blew my mind. Because it's like, that could have been anything. That could have just looked like a beat up area. No. They took such time and care to recreate that little area that barely anyone's even going to remember from the game. It's just a 2-second walk-through area. But I remember it because we just played it, and I paid very close attention when we played the game. And I sat in that area for a minute, and I waited for a guy to walk through, and I killed him. So I was, like, really analyzing and looking around at my surroundings in that area, and it's exactly the same. And it's literally just a walk-through area. But the fact that it's that accurate blew my mind. Because, like, the museum being super accurate and all that, like, it's awesome. Of course, yeah. But, like, it's a big thing. Sure. And you remember it. But this one little tiny area being exactly the same, that was where I was just like, this is special. Yes. What we're getting right now is special because we could not have hoped and expected anything better than that we're actually getting currently.
Yeah, and it's because it is a passion project, and a passion project that actually has money, thrown at it, so they're able to do so much with that, and, like, we're so lucky to be able to have that. The other thing with this episode that was really cool is that they address, instead of spores, it's the mycelial tendrils, and there's a scene where there's a ton of infected just kind of, like, laying on the ground. God. Tess and Joel and Ellie are looking down at them.
Do the wave.
And yeah, they're rippling.
Oh my God.
Like, it looks like the opening. It looks like mycelial, like, what was it that you said?
Neural network.
Yeah, it has such a trippy look to it. And they're just, like, laying there, none of them are standing up, and they're kind of turning over at the same time, and, like, these waves. And Tess is explaining, I don't know actually if it's at this scene that they explain it, but at some point it gets explained that the cordyceps, like the patches of these tendrils, you can step on them and alert a horde like miles away because they communicate through this underground mycelial web, which is a real thing.
So I'm now thinking and realizing that, and this is new, of course, the whole mycelial web through the ground and all that, this is all new, of course, to the game. They used to be spores and this and that. They did not have any alerting system like this outside of you, like, shining a light or movement or sound or whatever, but like actually like through the ground, like, you know, mycelium and mushrooms communicate. That's amazing. But I just realized while you were saying that they're laying down to connect with these things, and even maybe let them like grow into the ground or grow up into them, but they're like specifically laying down to get more body connection, as opposed to just through their shoes or their feet or whatever. They're like laying themselves down purposely in the same area to kind of make this web all together. So I didn't even think of like the fact that why they're laying down. Because when we first see them, we're thinking, are they dead?
Starving?
Some
or
of them,
dead
starving. No, they're making a connection.
Right. Well, their whole bodies are the fungus now.
Yeah.
So it makes total sense, and I just love this addition. I think that it's going to add so many. I don't know. I'm just very excited to see how it will be utilized throughout the rest of the series, because I think that they can do so much with it for, you know, suspense and, you know, pressure and all kinds of stuff. But I don't think they're gonna do this, but I was kind of thinking that since Ellie has the cordyceps in her, it would be interesting if she had some way of like sensing as well, like if she was linked. But I don't think that's
spidey sense.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. But I just was kind of like, that would be weird if she could like feel them in some way, you know. But I think it's supposed to be that the cordyceps are dead in her; they're not living. So I doubt that that's a possibility. But that is just so cool. The tendrils are there's something gross and tentacle like about them. Yeah. So that's unsettling.
They're like little worms. Yeah. Yeah. When we see the kiss.
Oh, the kiss is...
It's disgusting.
So gross.
And so yeah, I mean, now we get, and I thought that we would go in order, but it makes sense that we didn't. So we see stage 1, the runners. We skip stage 2, the shamblers. We still haven't seen one. And we moved right on to the clickers. Which,
oh my god.
I mean, it makes sense because in the museum, this is where we face the clickers. Yeah. Right? So this is like the first big fight against the clickers in the game is in the museum. And the museum is... I mean, I already said it's all so hyper accurate, but it's like when they're in there and it's just like, that's the game. Yeah. But in real life. Yeah. Like somehow they just brought it together. Every single thing on screen is so damn good.
It really is.
Everything you see, the cars, the ground, the buildings, when they go outside and they see the buildings that have fallen onto each other, like in the day.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Because when we see it in the rain and the lightning, it's cool. But during the day, it's like, that's it.
It's just jaw dropping.
We're in Last of Us Boston. Yes. We're there. Yes. We're in that world. Yeah. It really is breathtaking. It's so exciting to have. And it's not just fan service. That's what's so great about this show. There's an attention to detail out of love, right? Yeah. This is a passion project. They're not just like, oh, we'll just recreate the game exact. I really wish that Neil Druckmann, and I almost believe, and this is probably more HBO and Mason, but like with the Uncharted movie, I feel like maybe Druckmann was drowned out a bit by Sony, right? And they were kind of just like, well, we want to get Tom Holland and we want this and that, because with the Uncharted movie, you know, and Uncharted is my second favorite franchise. Naughty Dog has just reigned supreme for me in video games. I was told originally that it was going to be a prequel to the games, and the games were going to remain canon. That this was just going to be young Nathan Drake before we meet him in the first game. And I was like very excited about that. This clearly is not the truth when you watch the movie, because we get scenes from, you know, Drake's deception and whatever. Doesn't matter. But I almost have to believe that Druckmann either A, his voice was drowned out, and he was just like, well, I mean, that's not what we agreed on. Like, we said we're going to do this and that, and they were like, nah, we're going to change that because we want this and that. So, but I don't know. I don't know if it's the collaboration between HBO and Mazin, because when we listened to the podcast, Mazin had said, like, he wanted to meet Druckmann and that he was really interested in this, and HBO told him, like, you know, because of the success of Chernobyl, and it's amazing. If you haven't seen Chernobyl, it's fucking phenomenal. It's one of the greatest shows ever made. No hyperbole there. Hyperbole. But, like, he just went over to Naughty Dog after he talked to this person and got to know Neil, and he was just like, what do you think about making a show? And he was like, well, yeah, I mean, this and that. And he's like, all right, let's just go over to HBO and tell him.
Yeah.
And he was like, what? And he was like, come on. And they just went over to HBO, and Mazin just sat there, and he pitched the show, and HBO was like, we told you whatever you want. Like,
it needs
greenlit.
to make you float. Yeah.
And he was just like, okay.
Yeah.
And Neil was just like, it was surreal. Like, we walked into HBO, and we were just like, we're going to make this show, and they were like, you got it. And then they just made the show.
Oh, and it's just such a perfect combination. Like, them working together creatively, I feel like, is going to just be, like, groundbreaking for video game adaptations.
Yeah.
You know? And since we kind of got off topic with it, but the clickers in this episode... No, that's okay. I know you're, like, so excited about it. So excited. But just to bring it back, the clickers looked wonderful. The way that they move looks just like how they move in the game.
I have to believe that the mocap actors that played the clickers in the game they had to have returned to be the clickers in this, because
it's spot on.
It is exactly the same.
Spot on.
The movements,
there's one shot of a clicker kind of silhouetted while Joel's trying to quietly reload his weapon, and it's just there's a bunch of
Ellie's
shots
over
like
here,
that, but, oh my god,
like with her little flashlight, and she's hiding behind. This is the game.
So yeah, it is. It's just the game. It's like you're just watching the video game characters in real life.
But we watched this with my dad again. I talked to my buddy Wyatt. I talked to someone else who, none of them have played the games. And they were all like, this was fantastic. I loved it. So it's not just an adaptation for game fans. And this is where they're nailing it, and where their genius is really, really landing.
Yeah.
Is like, they're able to completely please the fans of the game, while, at the same time, they're able to please non-gamer fans who know literally nothing about it. So it's like, while we're watching it, it's like impossible for us to disconnect our feelings about, like, oh my god, that looks just so much like the game. But my dad's sitting there, and he's just like, oh shit, this is super tense. And it's like, yeah, that's how I felt when I played it. Right. So you're getting that. He's getting the same reaction. That's why this show's working. Because this is one of the most beloved games of all time, and it's because of the connection you have to everything going on, and they're able to duplicate that in a way that is like, pleasing to the people who want it to feel like the game. They're almost like chasing the dragon, so to speak, like the heroin high, right? Where you're like, you want to experience that feeling again, where it's like you're playing the game for the first time. And because of the changes and because of the accuracy, I feel like it almost feels like it's for the first time. And then they're getting that experience that you had the first time. So both sides of the coin are kind of getting that experience you had the first time you played the game.
Yeah.
And that's why this is working so damn well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible.
It really is. It really is. And, just, oh my God. Like, the scene in the museum, I can't stop thinking about just stupid things. Right? Oh man, when we were watching, I like freaked out because when Tess throws Ellie a magazine for a second, I guess it was for toilet paper, but But at first, for a second, I thought it was going to be a Savage Starlight comic.
Yeah.
But that won't work. I'm glad it wasn't. But for a second, I just wanted to see it. Right?
Course.
She steals it from Bill.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, that's fine. Like, it's going to happen. She's going to go through her shit.
Yeah, it's 100% going to happen. I don't see why not, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's such a...
I hope she steals the porno mag.
Yeah.
And the Savage Starlight comic.
Yes.
Right? Like, please have him be, like, really freaking suspicious of her. And she's like... And then once they break away, whatever. Sorry. Let's not get into the next episode too much. I said I was going to say some stuff. But I'll try to avoid it for the moment being. But
I'm just so excited. And we get more, of course, of Joel and Ellie's interactions this episode. And, they just play off of each other so well. They have the sarcasm going back and forth. Like, they both speak sarcasm very well to each other. And then you do see, like, I feel like, you're seeing Joel want to care. Like, there is a part of him that is like, he wants to. Because he can't turn it off. But he's afraid, and he doesn't want to be hurt like he was before, of course.
Joel's biggest issue has always been he cares too much.
Right.
This is why he shuts it off.
Right.
This is why he rejects any conversation. Right? This is why Ellie's trying to talk to him, and he's like, no more about me. It's not because he's dead inside. It's because he's too alive inside, right? If he was dead inside, he wouldn't care. He'd just be like, she'd be like, what happened with this and this? And he'd be like, my daughter's dead. He wouldn't care. He wouldn't talk. He'd talk about it because it doesn't hurt him.
Right, if he was
Joel
that
is not
about it.
Dead inside.
No, he's
right?
just numbed himself as much as humanly possible.
He's just taken drugs.
Yes.
And smuggled and killed people and whatever he can do to distract his mind from how much he genuinely cares.
Right.
So it's very easy eventually for him to fall back in. Once that happens, Joel falls back in quick.
Yeah. Because
that is Joel, right? Who the person we're hanging out with right now is not Joel, right? Towards the end of the game, we get a combination of who Joel became and who Joel was.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Because in this world, he has to be who Joel became. And it's only because of Ellie that he has to become who he was.
Right.
Right.
I'm very excited for the next episode, too, to see Frank and Bill. Because there might be some... I think that this next episode could have, obviously, some differences from the game.
Well, we already know that's going to happen because we saw the trailer.
Right.
And Frank's alive.
Right.
And with them.
Right. That's kind of what I was meaning.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the next episode and their relationship and just everything.
Yeah. I like we did watch the trailers on the next stuff because we know what's going to happen, so it doesn't really matter. There's no spoilers for us, really. I like that Bill's traps, so we'll talk about this in the next episode, but I'll say it really quick. Like, from what I can see, Bill's traps are different. And I'm hoping that he has, like, different kinds of traps. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not just bombs, right? Yeah. It's like a bomb and then fire and then whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, he has just kind of a multitude of different things. So I like that because it's just all the same shit in the game. And for it to kind of differ here and there, have some variety to it would be pretty cool. But yeah, just like the Tess stuff, what this episode does better than anything, like Haley said, is it makes Tess such a more rich and like a character that you can genuinely relate to and connect with. Mm-hmm. Like, Tess is magnified by like 100 to me. Yeah. Tess in the game is someone I like. I don't have anything against Tess, but once she's dead, you kind of just move on. Like, you just kind of just get right back to like, okay, I just got to get Ellie here, whatever. I don't have this emotional connection. And her standing off against Fedra versus, what she'll become. Because, you were kind of elaborating on this, but I don't feel like you really, really said it. But like, Tess has to kind of face down what she's being faced with, what the goal is.
Right.
Right? Like, this is why it's reinforcing how important Ellie is. Mm-hmm. And like, when she gets bit, she becomes a believer because she needs to believe. And she has to see what she is fighting against and why she's sacrificing herself. When the infected come in, she's reminded in that moment of like, this is why it's so important.
Yeah.
This is what I would turn into. This is why I need to blow this place up. This is why I'm protecting them. Yeah. Because look at what the world is. Mm-hmm. We have to have some hope. Right? And to face her off against what she's becoming, what she's trying to save. And the line she says to Joel, you know, save what you can save, or save who you can save who you can save. See, these added things, these added lines, these added character motivations, these added like plot elements and whatnot are so smart and enriching to this story. Yeah. It makes characters better. It makes the story better. It makes the urgency better. It makes the connections better, literally.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. So just the Tess stuff, because this is Tess's episode. Right? Not only do we expand upon her, I like Tess much more in the opening episode than I did in the game. Right? Just more rich, more there. We get to see the relationship with Joel. We get to see more interaction with her and Robert and how that went down. And like her talking to him and how she kind of controls Joel like he's a dog on a leash. Like all that stuff really enriches the character. But then, yeah, as you said, the connection with Ellie, how integral she is to this stuff. And then when she's turned, she like immediately has this change of heart, and she's like trying to plead with Joel, which she's the only one that can really get him to do it. And we never really, you know, that's another thing. And I hope we also expand upon this, and I'm pretty sure we will because of how we've already done so far. But like this Tess stuff, once Tess is dead and Joel really is just kind of in focus mode because he's running from Fedra. And so we really move away from that. We run through the building. We have to kill a bunch of Fedra people and all this and that. And so by the time you're done with that big action sequence, which they don't have to do in the show, they just blow up the building and then they're saved from all these things, which is great. It makes the impact of her death just have so much more meaning, right? Because Tess just holds them off for 5 seconds. And then you just have to fight 50 of them. So it's like she didn't die for anything. Right? But in this, she saves them.
She's sacrificed.
They would have died had she not done that. They would have never been able to get away from that many.
Right.
So she was able to let them all come into the building. Why she didn't put the sparks down into the freaking, flammable liquid. I think that's not, I don't think that's gas. I think it's probably like maybe, it could be kerosene. It could be diesel. I don't know. I don't know what color it was. Maybe it's just gas. Whatever it is. Yeah. When you're flicking and there's like little sparks, if she just put that down and it would have blew up. So that was pretty stupid. But I don't really care. But like her sacrifice means so much more. She actually saves them, and she saves Ellie by convincing Joel, right? Like that he has to go on, and her getting bit is what convinces her that they need to have some kind of hope. Right. They both were like, bad people. This is what she says to Ellie. We're bad people.
Right.
Right?
Well, and the fact that Ellie gets bit a second time, to prove that, because obviously in the game it's the spores.
We don't have the spores.
To prove that she really is immune to it. Like, yes, it makes Tess believe in the cause again. She's like, this is real. This is what we've been wanting, is like something that actually gives us hope. And yeah, she is the only one that can convince Joel at that point. So I do feel like, he leaves and takes Ellie for Tess entirely.
It's so smart to have, because you don't have the spores anymore, but even if you have the spores, it is so smart to have Ellie and Tess bitten at the same time.
Yes.
Right? To be able to show where she pulls down her thing, because with it in the game, she's just like, look at her wound. Like, I've had this for 5 minutes. Mine's already worse than hers, and she's had this for 3 weeks. But they don't know if that's a real bite.
Right.
They could be literally anything to them. Seeing that's an actual bite
yes.
or injury on her arm that was sustained by a clicker, and then for Tess to have one that's the same, and she is so messed up from
right.
it.
It's
right, and Ellie's got nothing
yeah.
going on. It's such a smart
yes.
change. And every change so far
very, very smart.
Is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
What we'll see in the beginning of the third episode, I don't know. I mean, could we see other countries?
I would
could
love
we see
more
them
flashbacks.
Bombing the cities?
Sure.
I would love for them to. I would love to see the bomb drop on Boston, and to see the building collapse. Right, all that. I don't need to see that kind of crap.
No,
that's more fan service.
But it would be great to see, and just to see maybe more exploration behind, scientists and professors of mycology or whatnot. People trying to maybe do something and failing miserably.
Oh, sure.
All of that would be really interesting to see.
Yeah. I could even see, and this would be cool, I could see Abby's father. I don't remember who the hell what his name is. I could see an opening with him.
Yeah.
And he is like a surgeon, and
I would love to see him.
And have him, working with people on. But I don't know. Would he have involvement? He's a surgeon. He's working alongside. Yeah. He's gonna be. I don't want to get into the spoilers for later on.
It would be cool to have something with him. I don't know if he would be there, but it would be interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to see an opening with him and his daughter Abby, and they're saving a zebra from a fence.
Yeah.
If I could see that in the opening of one of these episodes, I would freak out.
That would be huge.
I do have a feeling that episode would get like a 5.0.
Oh my god.
just seeing Abby
so ridiculous.
Would piss people off so much, but whatever.
Yeah.
Oh man. I'll stop. I guess we're done. There's so many things I'm sure we missed. So many little lines, so many little things that I would have mentioned had I watched this. I watched the first episode 8 times.
Yeah.
A little ridiculous. I don't know how many times I'm going to watch this one. Probably a lot. Jesus Christ. It's so great, guys.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I have a feeling, if I had to guess, what the opening of episode 3 is going to be, which is 80 minutes. By the way, so we're getting like a more lengthy one like the first one. I'm going to assume it's going to be Bill and Frank. Yeah, I have to, like, their relationship before Joel and Ellie arrive.
Or maybe
that's
even just Frank.
My guess.
Maybe even Bill before, too. Like,
maybe.
Just following him.
Maybe.
I'm just hoping for more flashbacks because I like them.
Yeah, I do like to see that because it reminds us of what was lost.
Yeah,
and what they're trying to regain. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, that's why the flashbacks are so important. Yeah. So, we'll see. What do you guys think? What do you think the opening of the third episode is going to be? What did you think of this episode? What were your favorite parts? What do you feel like was the best recreation from the game? I don't even know what my answer would be.
I don't know.
Probably the clickers. I don't know. The museum. What was your favorite addition?
Yeah.
Mine was, of course, the mycelium network through the ground and alerting them like some kind of freaking alarm.
Right.
Jesus Christ,
so
guys.
Good.
This is so great. For Neil Druckmann, as far as I'm aware, this is his first directorial debut of live action. Wow.
He nailed it.
He killed it.
Nailed it.
Now, granted, he's just kind of directing it like he did almost exactly the same as the games. So we already knew he knew what to do, but he still had to recreate it. And I don't think anybody could have done it any better. Yeah. So I'm really excited if he directed another episode. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I haven't checked yet. Did he direct another episode, or is this his only one? I hope he directed more, and I hope he continues to direct more into season 2 and 3, because we had read that season 2 is supposed to be like half of game 2, and season 3 would be like the next half. All it said was season 2 would be the first half. So whether or not more would be beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that's what I had read. We'll see if that's accurate. We're done. I'm sorry. I want to talk about this indefinitely.
Yeah. It's
Anything more?
phenomenal. No, as you said, I'm sure we missed stuff.
Oh, 100% we did.
Ourselves,
I'm going to be pissed off at myself like I was with episode 1.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of things I didn't mention that I was like, ugh, Jason.
Yeah, I can't think of any right now, but we'll see.
Yeah, I can't think of anything either at the moment, but yeah, whatever. Anyways, all right. See you in the comments.